August 1st, 2023, regular meeting, open session began at 4 p.m. And the first item on the agenda, we have call to order.
Councilmember Johnston? Here. Councilmember Riggs?
Here.
Councilmember Thompson?
Here.
Councilmember Goodson? Councilmember Weber? Vice Mayor Smith?
Present.
Mayor Pittman?
Here. Vice Mayor Smith, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. Salute. Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Adoption of agenda. Do we have any changes or amendments?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think we're all set.
Okay. I entertain a motion to adopt the agenda
I
as
move that we
presented.
adopt the agenda as presented.
A second.
Call the roll, please.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent.
Thank you all. Public communication hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any cards or any speakers?
Mr. Mayor, we have 3 speakers on non-agenda items. Our first speaker is Sean Reese.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Sean Reese. I'm a field representative from the NorCal Carpenters at Local 1599. I stand before you today to advocate for a cause that is crucial to the well-being of our community, the need to provide the construction industry with a living wage, healthcare benefits, and a commitment to hiring locally, while ensuring the accountability of our contractors. Construction workers are the backbone of this town's growth and development. They work day in and day out, dedicating their skills and labor to shape our landscape. Yet far too often they face the harsh realities of low wages, inadequate benefits, and limited job security. This not only affects their quality of life, but also hinders the growth of our entire community. By implementing a living wage for construction workers, we can address the pervasive issue of income equality. A fair wage not only supports workers and their families, but also fosters economic stability and boosts local spending, which ultimately strengthens our local businesses. Furthermore, providing healthcare benefits is essential to ensure the well-being of these workers. Accessible and affordable healthcare not only improves their quality of life, but also contributes to a more productive workforce. When workers can receive proper medical care, they are more likely to stay healthy and committed to their jobs, resulting in a safer and more efficient construction industry. Additionally, our town is filled with talented and eager individuals, eager to contribute to their own community's growth. By promoting local hiring practices, we can create jobs for our own residents, reducing unemployment rates and fostering a sense of pride and ownership on the projects that shape us. In conclusion, providing the industry with our core values, we can demonstrate our commitment to the well-being of construction workers, the growth of our community, and the values that we hold dear. Together, we can create an environment where all members of our city thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I might ask, do you have a letter or a documentation of your words that you could share with the? Absolutely. Thank you. The city clerk, we could add that to the minutes. Next one.
Mr. Mayor, our next speaker is Amy Jernigan.
Today is August 1st, which means it is Butte County Fair Month. So I am here on behalf of the Butte County Fair just to personally invite you, let you all know that August 24th is opening night. We have a director's reception. I've got some invitations for you guys that I will leave up here and some event flyers. We have a new jelly ball thing, jelly belly, whatever it is. I think it's a new, what is it called? Jelly ball, yeah. It's new, it's on Friday night, Thursday night. Friday night's Tough Truck. Saturday is the Derby, and Sunday's Hispanic Rodeo. We've got a new kids zone and some robotics cars things, and they're starting beer pong and Jake's and some fun different things. So we'd love to see you there. Again, just personally want to invite you all and let you know it's Butte County Fair Month. So thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Amy.
That meeting.
I believe it's at 5:00. Invitations are in here for you.
Okay.
Yep, and we're still putting together the agenda of events, so pretty soon it'll be online. Okay?
All right.
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
No, thank
Okay,
you.
hope to see you guys there too.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
The next speaker is Bill Spear. If the mic is on, I'm trying to speak. It picks up on this.
Verse in a prayer again. The verses this evening is out of Psalms 1. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of the sinner, or sit in the seat of the mocker. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. And this is the part I really like. He is like a tree planted by the streams of water. Everything he does will prosper, his leaves will not wither, and he will yield his fruit in season. So, Father, I thank you for our city council, and Lord, I pray that you continue to bless them, continue to use them, Father. Give them that supernatural wisdom. Give our city that supernatural provision, supernatural guidance, supernatural favor. Thank you for National Night Out this evening, and we continue to speak your word over the city, that we will reap what we sow, and as we sow time and effort into the city, that it's making a difference. We thank you for the new Navigator program and the MLE program, and thank you for all our new code enforcement, and it is making a difference, and we are so grateful and thankful. Thank you for movement on the Esperanza project that says in your word, what we've done to the least of these, we've done unto you. And so we thank you for the opportunities, Lord, that you're giving us to make a difference in all areas of the city and all the community. Lord, we thank you for our fire and the police, for their diligence. Another scripture that says, the greatest of all shall be the servant of all. So we thank you for all the public servants. We thank you for all the people that risk their lives, all that run in when everyone else is running out. And we pray that supernatural protection for them, supernatural blessings for their family. Lord, we love you. We thank you. Continue to bless the church, all the service groups. Continue to raise our city up to be a light on a shelf, a city on a hill, for your kingdom and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers on non-agenda items. Oh, I apologize. The cameraman.
Okay,
I put.
come on up to the podium.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. For a non-agenda item tonight, I would like to talk about a couple things. The first is I'm glad to see new apartments coming to Oroville. It's always great to see, our town growing. But the apartments by the fish hatchery, we got that new sidewalk in. It's great. I'm just wondering if there's going to be a railing installed. As far as, it's nice sidewalk, but I'm just a little concerned possibility, of a car ever does, not pay attention, goes up on that curb, if we get some protection, or what the status of that is, if there's already a plan in place where it's at. And just, I'm not an ADA expert, but I'm just wondering, is there any sort of ADA compliance that needs to be met in regards to the hill? Because I've talked with a few people, and it's like, unless you've got an electric wheelchair, you're a normal person, it's going to be very difficult for them, with a non-electric wheelchair to make it up and down that hill if they ever so had to make that journey. And my second comment is in regards to the construction you've all might have seen underneath our freeways at Montgomery Street and 70 and Oro Dam and 70. I think it's great. It's nice that see our town improving. But and for the record, I do know that jurisdiction is Caltrans. But some questions is, well, it's nice to see that it's getting beautified and whatnot. But what about the road still underneath? It's still the same, bumpy road that's needs some improvement. Second is, do we know if this was, just now, hey, let's make it beautiful? Was this asked for? Because, those bridges have, signs painted on them when they're erected. That one over by Oro Dam has been there from the 60s, so up since 1962, it's been, from my dirt. Now it's, this concrete. And, I know homeless people gather under those places and they're still there. Just now, instead of dirt, it's going to be concrete for them to lay on if they choose to still remain there. I mean, it looks great. It's wonderful. It's just, kind of why now? It's all I've seen. It's, now it looks great, but now the homeless people have just been moved on, or now they're just sitting where the new stuff is. I know they've the concrete along Montgomery Street has now just kind of become a bench for them. So those are my comments. Thank you for the time, and I'll be speaking again shortly.
Thanks,
Mr.
sir.
Mayor, now that is the last of the speakers for non-agenda items.
Okay. We'll move to the next item is reports, council announcements and reports. Anyone have anything to report or? Oh, sorry, Vice Mayor Smith.
Just real quick, gentlemen, to spoke on construction before you leave. Just a real quick question. North Valley Contractors Exchange, are you Okay, so you're part of the union, representing the union? Okay, very good. That's what I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, National Night Out. I just came rushing in from setting up our booth out there, so really stoked about everyone making it out there, and hope all of our council members and mayor can make it out. I'm sure we're going to do that, but just a great opportunity to connect with the community. Thanks.
Cool. Anyone else? We probably mentioned the ribbon cutting for what he just last mentioned is my date, is it 24th?
It's on my desk. It's the end of August. I want to say it's the 30th, but I'll be sure to send that out to everybody. It is a ribbon cutting for the beautification project, which was funded by the California. It was a grant from California, the state of California, to do the beautification project. I can't speak tonight. On the west side of the on-ramp and off-ramp for Highway 70 there on Montgomery, and if you haven't been by there, they've done a heck of a job there. But yeah, I'll be sure to send out the exact date. I know it's I believe at 10 a.m. August.
I don't want to say 24, but that might not be right. It's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it out to everybody. For
Okay.
some reason, August 30th is ringing a bell in my mind. But
And there's another ribbon cutting coming up for Highway 70 on the September 12th, I think has now been rescheduled to that event. And that'll be down at the Huncut Creek Bridge. So that's a nice one to see improved. And then I could report on BCAG. We had a long meeting about a variety of topics. One of them was that a huge grant to Paradise for their infrastructure building and also for their bus transit facility. They're going to have one up there. So it was good to see Paradise, because they need to rebuild. That was a good thing. So, Councilman Johnstone.
Thank you. I had a good conversation with our new community navigator, and he wanted me to recognize one of the MLE officers that is working with him. I want to say, is it Mindy? Officer Mindy Sabaria. He wanted to just make it aware that she is doing a wonderful job, that one of the interactions that our community navigator had with one of our vulnerable population could have ended in a really physical confrontation, and she performed her duties wonderfully and stepped in and was able to talk this person down, calm them down, and just make both of them feel protected. And I just wanted to give her kudos publicly and let the MLE know that they are doing a wonderful job. So,
Good.
Thank you.
I should add, too, that at the SCORE meeting, we just got an announcement that Congressman LaMaffa was able to secure us another $2 million funding for improvement and upgrade of the SCORE plant. So with the county's $10 million and now the $2 million, we're getting close to the $30 million rebuild. So that was a nice announcement at the last SCORE meeting. Administration reports. Anything you might want to introduce?
yes, I'll go first. First of all, I want to introduce Fred Mayo is here, our Public Works Director that we recently entered into a contract with. This is his second day. He came back today. We're thrilled to see him. He's been doing a great job, though. He's been met a ton of people, met his staff, and again, we're thrilled to have him. So
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you
Yeah. Welcome.
And then we have a new community development director starting next Monday, Patrick Pyatt. He'll be here, and certainly we'll introduce him at the second meeting in August. And also to my right here, Kayla Reister is going to be, obviously, one of the items on the agenda tonight is to approve a second assistant city clerk, because we're going to be losing Jackie, and so this is Jackie's actually last meeting. So I want to thank Jackie for all she's done for the city, and for my short time here, she's been great to work with. She's done a great job, and she'll be missed. But I'm thrilled for her and her opportunity to pursue her passion, and is going to be going into teaching. So wish her nothing but the best. So
Yeah.
also. A couple other quick things. If you haven't, I'm sure everyone's heard, but the old racquetball club was converted to a fire training center through Cal Fire, and I talked to the fire chief earlier today just to get an update on that. He's calling it a soft opening right now, but they do have a crew up there training, and they're training specifically for wildfire response events. But they're going to have about 15 crews, on average about 15 crew members there, pretty close to being year-round. I mean, there's going to be, I think December, January, February, they're going to be revamping and retooling for the next training for the following year. But it's a great opportunity. It's a great program for the city. And if anyone would like to have a tour of the facility, he said to go ahead and please reach out to the chief, and he's happy to share that with you.
Cool.
Let's see. Ribbon cutting was on there, which was already
Got it.
mentioned. And I think that's it for now.
Okay.
For me.
Very good. Then we'll move toward the consent calendar. Any councilmen have any items on the consent calendar they wish to have discussion on, or?
Mr. Mayor, I have a public speaker on item 2 and 3.
Okay. Let's bring that forward then.
The cameraman?
Okay.
Good evening again, Oroville City Council. I'm going to be commenting on item 2 and 3 in regards to retaining resource officers for the Oroville School District and the memorandum for the Thermalito Elementary School Union District. I know they got all these alphabet soups of names. Sometimes it gets jumbling. But mainly my concern is in regards to retaining an officer is preferably we have one that is not on a Brady list. Now, the Brady list of the state of California is basically if an officer is ever caught lying, they can't really be called into court, testify, short end of the story. Now, we do have a sergeant that, from my understanding, is doing a lot of work in our school district, Sergeant Purdy. Never had a problem with her, but from my understanding, she's on the Brady list, and that stems from her allegedly letting somebody go for a DUI. She ended up having to go to arbitration, fight for her job. Long story, she ended up getting put on the Brady list, and because of that, that hinders her ability to, do her job in the sense to come into court and testify to things in relation to juvenile cases, because you're on the Brady list and you can't be essentially trusted. You can't be called in to testify. So a lot of these cases kind of get thrown to the wayside because, from my understanding, these juveniles, when they do something wrong, there's supposed to be a follow-up, and these follow-ups haven't been really happening because that person that's supposed to be mainly in charge of that can't really come in to testify. So some of these issues are, being neglected, and our youth are really, our future of this city. So, whether they do wrong or right, they need to be held accountable for their actions. And, I'm dealing with a matter right now where a juvenile from Oroville High School pulled a knife on me while I was on the way to this meeting. Maybe if they come to these meetings, put their minds, won't be doing silly stuff like that. Now we're in a juvenile adjudication hearing, going through those process, that process. But, we need to, I'm not looking to turn our local schools into some Orwellian prison. I mean, some students may argue that they already are enough as tongue-tied, enough as it is already, it feels like. But, when you're, not behaving, you need to be held accountable. Goes for, me, you, all of us, no matter what age you are, you're not, above being held accountable. Nobody is, you do wrong, you be held accountable. But primarily, we want, a young officer, no bad history, I think, would be needed in our school, especially one that can talk to youth on the youth level, within a reasonable age range. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have it? Go ahead.
That is the only speakers for the consent calendar.
Okay. Any councilman have any other comments about the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as agendized.
I second.
Call roll, please.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent.
All right. Next item under regular business, item number 5, service agreement with Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency. Mr. Ring?
Yes, I'll kick this off. This is a follow-up to an item that was presented to the council, I believe back in February, I believe it was. The staff were directed to work with Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency, otherwise referenced as Sabufka. They're an agency, I believe they've been in existence since 2007 or so, and they've done a lot of work on levee management. The item before you today is an MOU or an agreement between the city and Sabufka to establish a relationship where we could potentially work with them, tap into their expertise. They're an organization that's been around for 15 years now, working on levees, helping identify what the issues are, attain certain flood level certifications, identify funding for grant opportunities, and this is an MOU just to build that relationship. And it would be coming forward is in the future, hopefully, we'd work with them to identify potential task orders that would be very specific, have very specific scope of work associated with those, identify what those costs would be if we were to go forward with actually projects with Sabufka. And I know Michael Bissett is here to answer any questions. I know he gave a great presentation back in February, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those, or Michael is as well.
Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. Yes, I have several questions. But I, with all due respect, Mr. Ring, if you read the memorandum of understanding, it's not just a build relationship. It actually is an agreement that puts us, specifically Section 4, Article A, says the city agrees to reimburse SBFCA for the cost of services not reimbursed for outside funding. So there is a agreement for payment in this agreement. So I have just at the gate on this one, I have a lot of questions and kind of unsure, or a sense of unsureness as far as what exactly this is. Who owns the levees? Because I know that there's a lot of restrictions of what we can or can't do, and people as far as development on the levees. From my understanding, the city does not own the levees. Is that incorrect?
No, it's my understanding well, and this is something we could certainly dig into further, but it's my I've heard that essentially it's considered an orphan levy, which then, since it's in the city limits, it's the city's responsibility to maintain it. That's the way it's been explained to me.
I can answer that question. The city owns the levee that's all part of the concrete, which identified that, which was built in 1913, and the city actually performed that construction work. So consequently, we kind of own it. This has been looked at many, many times over the years. So essentially, we're looking from the Thurberley to the Green Bridge south or river down to essentially the other side of Bedrock Park is considered the ownership and the responsibility of the city. And we've always taken care of it since then. So that answers your partial question. And this side of the river, not the other side, just this side. And then in the 30s, the gold dredging operations that occurred actually lifted the rock and added to the existing levee. The original levee built in 13 was only a concrete slope. And if you see the one picture of the convention center is built on stilts, and that was a beach. And the water, you could actually stand on Montgomery Street and look and see the river. Mm-hmm. And then
with the one that I'm going. By the way, I appreciate your history.
Go ahead. No, well, and what happened is the concrete was there, and then they decided, because they were doing the gold dredging, to add the material onto the existing concrete, which gave us the width of the levee.
So you say they, when you mean the city?
The
or-
city and the dredging operation, which was the Wendell Hammond Company, took the rock piles and left it on the levee to build it better and then raise it up to the current level where the asphalt is. And that was done in the 30s, because they had gold dredging operations in the 30s up to the 40s. So consequently, we built the pump station over here that the city owns to pump the drain water from the city rainwater and then flow it up over, because that captured water that no longer, the thickness of the levee captured water here in downtown Oroville, and once the water rises, there was no place for it to go, so that's why we put in a pump station over here at the base of the levee to capture that. So the city has an ownership not only for the levee, but also for the drainage out. And when the check valves are closed, then we have to, or the street drains are closed, then we have to operate it. So the long history is the city's always had a responsibility. We've taken care of the levee from day one. As far as ownership of the parcel, the only other one that got into a long deed discussion was the work on the trail and the Peter Gibson Spanish land grant up here behind the apartments. That the Spanish land grant actually said to the center of the river. Nobody knows where the center of the river was. So that also was litigated out with the rec district to understand who owns the levee, and they finally did that, which is amazing to me. I don't know how they ever figured that one out, but the city has the responsibility to take care of it. Now, we would have a good argument to get improvements done with a variety of agencies that may be able to help us. And that's where I think Sabutco would be wonderful at it. In fact, I don't want to change your question, but I might ask Michael to come up and talk about the $7 million of work going on south of us and that process in a minute about what's going on south of the river, because if we want to really protect the citizens of Oroville, we really got to get a channel that can flow the capacity of what they could put down our river. So, but go ahead with your question. I don't want to.
Thank you. And just, can you continue with that?
Sure. I'll direct your attention to the paragraph before that on paragraph number 3, and then we'll go to Exhibit A. Paragraph 3 says Sabufka agrees to provide the services as described attached in Exhibit A, and we'll get to that in just a minute. The services will be determined by task orders issued by the city and accepted by SBFCA. So if you don't issue a task order approved by the council with either a funding source attached to it or with an identified, grant attached to it, there is no work that's done.
So, a second question with that.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your answers. Does this agreement, it says a services agreement, is it ownership? You're saying that we already own the levee, but as far as SB's, whatever, Sabuca, or whatever you're calling it.
Yeah.
Is this legally making Oroville a part of that organization, or is this just what it says right here, just a services agreement?
No, it's a services agreement. So SBFCA is a joint powers authority. You're not joining the joint powers authority. You're just entering into a contract with them for services. And again, this is sort of, if you look at it like an overarching umbrella, this is the overarching umbrella until you have pieces hanging from it which actually have the specific task order and contracts with the funding. There is no work that's being done under this. So anything, and again, let me keep going on. Section 3 outlines that this council will have to approve task orders with a funding source approved and by them as well. It's not just one-sided where you get to say, hey, you're going to do this work for us and we're going to pay you. They have the ability to say, well, that's not what we want to do, right? It's got to be a joint agreement. But looking at Exhibit A, where you talk about the work that needs to be done, both Work Element 1 and Work Element 2 have clauses in them that talk about these task orders. For example, I'm just looking at the language, this one jumped out at me. Work Element 2, the second sentence. Once specific projects are identified and a funding source is secured, SBFCA will manage contractors and other specified consultants contracted by the city in order to advance and complete the projects. In other words, we have to it's not just hey, we've got this MOU, so go ahead and start working and we'll just pay for it. And whatever you guys want to do, we're just going to send money your way. Items have to be specifically approved as a task order or a work order or some finite scope of service that they're going to provide. And if they come in and if you all approve this agreement and nothing more, and they do some work and send you a bill, it will not be paid because you would not have issued a work order. Now, I can tell you they're also not going to do that, right? But you do have the ability to say, and by this document you are saying, unless the council approves a subsequent task order, work order, agreement, there are no services that are provided.
I guess my frustration with the whole thing, and this isn't the city's fault, my frustration with this is in regards to the fact that the levees and all that we have that we're talking about right here, and the water that flows is really at the control of the state water contractors and Department of Water Resources, in the same way that their mismanagement of the dam and the spillway caused the incident in 2017. You know, that in my opinion, as far as the levy goes, that should be the responsibility of the ones who benefit from the water that they're selling that's coming out of our lake. So it's like, we were taken through their deal. They, in talking with DWR and even just like spending $100,000 to do a little bit just in the river here for us. It's just like, it's almost, I don't want to use harsh terms, and I won't, but that continually keeps getting taken, to serve the needs of a agency that continues to show they have little regard for our community. So it's really frustrating for us to in this. I hear what you're saying that, in regards to the levy, but it just sounds to me, when looking at all this, that this should be something that the state water contractors and the Department of Water Resources, that they should ensure that as they release water and they send it down to Southern California, that they also ensure that our community is safe through their process, as opposed to, hey, by the way, we're going to run over you, better wear a helmet. You better make sure your helmet's strong enough to, withstand the weight of our truck that's going to run over you as we take this water down to Southern California.
If I can address that for a moment, I understand the frustration and I think it's valid, right? One of the things that this agency does is they go to state water contractors, they go to DWR, they go to FERC, and they ask for grants.
Yeah,
and
they request. Can we have money to protect us from you?
Well, but look, but again, they when they make that argument and say this levy needs some attention. When they go and they say, hey, we'd like to do these projects, they'd be nice projects, that's where you're asking for a grant. I'm relatively certain that if they found and there isn't one, so I don't want to create any unknown, if they were to find some flaw that were in the levy that were a substantial issue, I'm quite certain they would go to DWR and say, we found X, you need to put some money up so we can take care of that. I'm quite certain that would happen. Now, I understand what you're talking about, and I get what you're talking about. With the frustration of, and I'll just put it in a global perspective of, the treatment, how the community has been treated since the 1960s, right? It has not always been a model of
neighborly gestures.
Of neighborly gestures, right? Yeah. So I get that frustration. I think this is one of the things that can help rebuild those ties between all of the parties.
I wish I would. I used to be very, especially coming into City Hall. I have friends that work for DWR, and I'm like, DWR just seems to be painted as the bad guy, and they're not that bad. And then now being here for a couple of years, like, gosh, they're, sure are really stingy in regarding their part on this side of the dam. And of course, if Eric he was here, I could hear him now. Well, once the FERC license is issued, then it's like,
let me take the flip side of that coin for a minute. Sometimes you look at a contract and say, what are the benefits we're getting from it? This one, you can look at it, and I look at it and show me the downside. There's no downside here.
I guess
because unless you issue a work order, nothing is done. Nothing gets done.
I guess that was my question is, does this put us at, because I saw we are liable for expenses, looking as far as, are we, going into necessarily bed with the joint powers agreement? I guess, so that answers those questions. Maybe my last question is regarding the levy. There seems to be a level of confusion in regards to what can and cannot be done on the levy, and it often seems like when we have these questions as far as what can be done or built, it constantly feels to me, and my experience has been, that our hands have been tied as far as what we can do with said levy that apparently we own, but we own it, but yet we can't do anything on it, or it just build or develop or do something different. It just, maybe that's that isn't the correct view, but it's been my experience, when questions come, even with what we can do up there, it just seems like there's not much, almost as if it's not our property. And I'm not sure why it was mentioned that, it's kind of an orphan levy when, now it sounds like we own it, or do we own it, and all that?
Well, I can tell you, I have, I mentioned to you that, look, I don't organically do work that I just think needs to be done, right? If the council would like me to dig in and figure out exactly what is the ownership of the levy, what is the control that we have over the levy, what are the development rights we may have with respect to the levy, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, please.
I mean,
I know I'm only one. I need two, but absolutely, yes, please.
What I would come back with is, if you would like to have some alternative arrangement with the levy, we can also try and make that happen. What I as a public agency, now again, I'm getting outside of my role for a moment as the city attorney, but generally speaking, as a public agency, if there's property that you own and you want to, or if there's property you want to control, it's best to own it. If there's property that you don't care about, then you don't need to own it. Then let the free market do what it's going to do. If you care about the levy, then it's best to own it, because you can control what happens on it and you can control what happens around it. I don't know what the limits of that are. I know there are going to be lots of agencies that'll have things to say about it. It might be that you own it, but you don't have complete rights to do whatever you want on it. I'm sure there will be some regulations that come along with the levy that you'd be required to comply with. But, we can certainly look at that. But again, I'll go back to the flip side of this ideology, which is there's no downside here with what you've got. It doesn't obligate you to pay a nickel for anything.
I hear you.
Unless there's a subsequent agreement.
I hear you. Now, but I will say again, just to reemphasize, I definitely would like to have that clarified, because in my history of being involved with the city, I have seen and witnessed a lot of confusion as far as what can be done on and around the levy. The water and the river being one of our great assets that we have as a community, but yet almost seems like we have a wall between us and the river, and development potentially that could happen, and it just seems like, anyway, so I would love to have that clarified, even for potential people who want to do something. It needs to be very clear as far as if there needs to be something that's done in order for there to be potential development or recreation or whatnot up there. I would like that to be clarified so that if we want to move forward with something, we can. I was going to say something else, but I forgot, so I guess I'm done.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my understanding of this arrangement, not that you're an agent of, but it kind of, that relationship then is set up in a way that you can begin to look for on our behalf grants, funding mechanisms. So without that relationship, then your ability to do that, obviously, would be moot. So I see that as kind of first steps for us as a city to join in with an agency that has the capacity, you know, you have that understanding, that's your expertise. So, you know, certainly no one in the city, unless Mr. Mayo has some expertise in that department, it seems to me like that's probably a very good move. And like Councilman Thompson to point out, you know, we, after being here a few years, we certainly have, you know, experienced frustration. And then looking at the history, one of the things that came right away to my observation is the fact that the city is drawn out of the FERC boundary, which I thought, how, so the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, then they dictate essentially, or DWR has to seek responsibility, and they determine what level of responsibility and DWR has to the overall state water project. All of the lake, through down through the hatchery, out to the wildlife area, all of that is inside the FERC boundary, except for a little strip, downtown Oroville. And I thought, who on earth thought that was a good idea? So you see certain things like that. And then, of course, the answer from Mr. C and company is that, well, that's why you have the SBF. It's to help, you know, augment and pay for those things, which is obviously the go-to, you know, answer to that. So, you know, certainly, you know, there's a lot of frustration there. But I think at the end of the day, I think the point was, you know, this probably makes the most sense moving forward, even though we are saddled with those frustrations. And, you know, hindsight, you know, is always 20/20, right? We look, oh, man, why did they agree to that? But nevertheless, you know, here we are, and we have to address it. And then when it comes to ownership of the levee, sometimes it's always easier to just say no. But when you step back and anecdotally evaluate ownership and what the city has done historically with that property, we're installing Portland loos. We've been digging up stuff on the levee, adding infrastructure, pipe, electrical, and then we have a beautiful Centennial Plaza that has an outlook extending out over the river, which is obviously engineered. So it would seem just at quick glance, we can kind of do stuff up there, I would say, because we're currently doing stuff and we have done stuff to improve that, you know, that asset here in our community. You know, in fact, there's some plans, and I'm sure the mayor is quite acquainted with it, that we even, there was some studies done about taking the levee down a little bit. Maybe it was overbuilt, and that we could have more of a visual and connectivity with the downtown and the river. Of course, it sounds really cool, but probably very unpopular and makes folks very, very nervous. And I think that's kind of why no one wants to touch it, because then whoever touches it, you know, when I was a contractor, if you touch it, you own it. And so who wants to be that guy if something bad happened, you know, went sideways? So I kind of think that's maybe why we hear a lot about, you know, we don't want to touch the levee. But at the end of the day, really, we have as a city over time and development. But anyway, I also wanted to express that Councilman Weber had told me just quickly that he was in support of this First Steps agreement. So I just wanted to report that out as well. Thank you.
Councilman Thompson, are you back?
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I do remember the last thing I was going to. Can you actually, sir, can you come to the?
Sure. Yeah. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah. My question to you is in regarding your experience with the
Sabuthka.
Yeah, there's no ooh there, but I'll take your word for it. In regards to the levee south of here and your experience from getting water, funds from the state water contractors.
Sure. Let me give you a little history.
Your
My name
mic's
is Michael Bissett.
your mic's not on.
Michael. She got it. She has it.
There you go. You're on.
Oh, now it's on? Okay. My name is Michael Bissett. I'm the Executive Director for Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency. Our agency was formed in 2007, and we were formed by Sutter County, Butte County, the 4 cities, and 2 levee districts. And our simple focus is to build flood risk reduction projects. That's all we do. We've been doing that since 2007 until now. Our program we've probably spent about over $400 million to date building levee improvements. Much of that has been funded by the state and the federal government. So we've been very aggressive in identifying grants and pursuing those grants and landing those grants, and then using that federal or state money to build out our projects. So that's what we do. That's the service we're looking to provide to the city. We don't do anything else other than flood risk reduction projects, so we focus on that. Our agency, we approved this services agreement in June. It was unanimous. A board of 13 members from all our respective agencies. So we're looking to help. That's really all we're offering. This services agreement provides a framework for a relationship. There's no bill attached to the services agreement right now. If you guys approve it, it doesn't obligate the city to pay anything. We would only start working with your staff to identify task orders, and then those task orders would become before this council and then my board for approval, and that's when a budget would be set and monies would be spent. So only at that time. The primary focus, I believe, is when we first do an engagement with the city is to identify funds. I appreciate your frustration with the state. You know, you guys are directly downstream from Oroville Dam. You're looking for help from the state. That's what we're looking to identify and provide to the city. I know the mayor sits on the Oroville Dam Citizens Advisory Commission. Supervisor Kimmelshoe does also, Supervisor Connolly. They're all going to be advocating for funding through the state and the federal government to bring into the city to advance this program. So that's what we're looking to offer. I think your city council identified or addressed your questions pretty well in terms of how we would advance this and the commitments of the city and when that would happen. But I'm here to answer any of the questions. And I hope I answered all of them. I took notes of what you were talking about here.
That get you?
I'm good.
Okay. A couple comments I want to add. As far as ownership of the levee, we spent $3 million putting the Centennial Plaza there, and we had to go through to identify who owns the levee. That grant alone will tell you who owns the levee, because otherwise if somebody else owned it, they wouldn't let us put the Centennial Plaza. That was $3 million. And that was a governor's overturn of a blue pencil veto. So it's pretty clear that grant alone identified who owns the levee. And also the responsibility of the levee for the citizens of Oroville is our big ticket item here. Our last study, I think 2013 or 20.
I think it was funded by the state in 2012, and then the study ended in about 2015.
And that one only looked at the ability of a 100-year flood plan. I think we need to look at a 200-year flood plan as the inundation maps to tie in with that. And I can speak to a particular experience because I'm also with the housing authority that owns the Gridley Labor Camp. And the Gridley Labor Camp was stuck with huge flood insurance issues until you guys came in. When the housing authority joined that, it saved our flood insurance big time. I mean, huge amounts. So that you improved that levy to the 200-year level, and then that took care of that issue. So there's an economic benefit driver here too that I see, not only for our citizens in downtown Oroville that that elevation of 237, but also our industrial commercial area, which has a sneaky way of water coming back into town.
Right.
The other thing that was done is Highway 70 was built as a roadway as an alternative to the dam being built. There's a lot of people that consider that a levee. It's not. It's a raised road for a freeway, and it was all rock cobble. So the idea that that is a levee is really a false impression. So we have issues when someone builds in that area, they have to raise their footing up to a certain level, which was, I think, with the 100-year flood plan, a couple projects have had to bring in fill material. So there's an economic driver here that I see for our commercial industrial area that really needs to be supported so that we can be able to show the 200-year flood maps that we need to have in place. So those are just comments that I'll throw out there that we've had experience with projects and developers, and some developers will choose land based upon how much soil they have to add to get to a certain elevation. So those are the positives. I might ask the question, I know, and Supervisor Conley shared with us the project south of Oroville with the Oroville Wildlife Project that's roughly, you might tell us about what's going on with that.
Yeah, so our agency, we completed a project in the Oroville Wildlife area in 2019. That was in the Unit D area of the wildlife area. And that was a flood stage reduction project. We constructed a brand new weir to allow floodwaters to flow into that area. provide floodplain inundation there. We also built recreational improvements, O&M improvements. We cleaned out the canals. We built a brand-new connection to the Feather River, so it allows the river to back up into that area and allow fish to migrate in there for salmonids. So it was a great project. So we have another grant now from the state to expand upon that project. We're in the planning process of that now, so we're doing a lot of outreach, and we'll be reaching out to the city and a bunch of the recreational groups around here. We already have started that work. In addition, we applied for an amendment to that grant to do the floodplain inundation mapping here for the city, because as Supervisor Connolly kept telling DWR, he didn't believe that their map, so we're going to redo those maps. So we got a grant from the state to do that. So we'll be working with the city staff on that as well. So there's a lot of work going on that we're doing in this area, and this would just be added to that if the council approves the
And the critical
services.
thing about those maps is that's what flood insurance companies look at, is those inundation maps to dictate our rates for our customers.
They do, and FEMA's going to be coming in fairly soon to remap this city, and they're going to look at that levee and they're going to say, okay, city, can you certify that it provides 200-year level of protection, or 100-year for FEMA?
Right.
And the answer would be no. And then they would map it into the floodplain.
Right.
And that could be happening at some point in the future. And I'm not here to be doom and gloom or anything, but that is a fact.
That's a fact. Yeah.
But I don't know the timeframes. FEMA works fairly slow, which is good at times. But anyways, that is something to be aware of.
And part of your grant, or your work is not necessarily to deepen the channel, but give farther down channel a wider width for the water to flow, which helps us out tremendously.
Or the Oroville Wildlife Area, yes, exactly.
By widening out the water level, when we won't get the buildup, we won't have the high levels, like Bedrock Park in 97 was completely underwater, 3 steps on the top staircase. We had that much water flowing, so. Appreciate that. Vice Mayor, or you?
Yeah.
Vice Mayor.
Just a quick comment, I think, just for historical reference. I think DWR must really love you guys, because within that license agreement, see, there's $1 billion of funding or plus for those projects that you guys are doing and finding money for. So that means they're responsible to ensure that it happens. That you guys, so it's given them, they're getting some slack cut, so to speak, or, where they're not having to spend a lot of money on these projects. So I think you're probably really popular amongst certain circles in that you're, kind of assisting. But at the end of the day, it's appreciated because these projects need to happen. And as we know, this license it's been held up for over 16, almost 17 years now. And so for an example, like the spawning beds, that was part of it for environmental. As we know, salmonoids are not surviving now in our river. And this year, there's no fishing for salmon, including in the ocean, because of the impacts. And so now that work actually just started, where we had hoped we'd get Bedrock Park fixed, which they backed out of that. They're actually starting on that project now to, upgrade the spawning beds for the fish. But all of those projects are the responsibility of DWR. And to ensure that those projects move forward. So, I mean, hats off to you guys who kind of found ways to get stuff done, whether it's the Weir project in the wildlife area and or the camping, 24 spot camping facility, a new boat ramp we're going to get in the wildlife area, which thank you.
We
That's
just got
great.
that grant as well.
Yeah, you guys just got it. So
Right.
that'll be happening soon. And so that helps our community with tourism. So
Right.
you guys are doing a lot of good work, good partnership with the
exactly.
city. And so I just want to say thank you. I mean, I see what you're doing and I see the benefit. And it is kind of cutting some slack for the folks up on the hill.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We don't have any cards from the public at all on this?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards.
Well, with that, I'd entertain a motion for this item.
So I move that we approve the service agreement with Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency.
I second.
Let's call the roll, please.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent.
Thank you all, and thank you for answering the question, sir. Number 6, the contract with Butte Construction Company for Mission Esperanza Pallet Shelter Development Project. Amy.
Good evening, Mayor Pittman and council members. Today I'm asking you to consider accepting the proposal from Butte Construction Company to consider approving the project contract in the amount of $2,164,800 for Mission Esperanza. This covers the base bid amount of $914,800 and a 10% contingency of $196,800. With the current awarded funding, which consists of the ERF2L, the county ARPA, and the city ARPA funds, the contract will cover Phase 1 of Mission Esperanza. Phase 1 includes all infrastructure for 15 pallet shelters, 40 congregate beds, and office spaces for service providers. Staff is adjusting the service section of the ERF2L budget to close the gap for the construction needs. However, if we are funded the ERF-R to our funds, we will return those to that area of the budget. Although this contract does not include construction costs for Phase 2, which the city has bid amounts for, once funding is secured, staff will amend the agreement to include the items in Phase 2 of that bid, which includes 5 concrete pads, pedestals for ADA compliant shelter units, and the concrete pads for community building, intake shelter, perimeter fencing, and exterior lighting. If the ERF2R fund application is funded, city staff will also work with Butte Construction to prepare change orders to include Phase 2 and Phase 3, which includes an additional 15 concrete pads for 15 non-congregate shelter units, which would bring the total of 30 non-congregate beds, an additional 30 non-congregate beds, up to 105 shelter beds. I have Susie Cockums on the line here if you have any more specific questions, but we're tonight asking for approval to enter into agreement with Butte Construction, as well as to authorize the city administrator to approve or amend the contract to include the additional items as funding becomes available.
Do we have any speaker cards on this?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speaker cards on this item.
Council questions? I have a question. Annie, would you come to the podium?
Is this on? Oh, it's on. Okay.
Yeah. Question, when did you and Steve come up with this idea?
I looked back through some records that we had recently. 2018, I wrote the budget narrative for a grant that we had applied for in order to be able to buy that property. Actually, it was even before we bought that property, so 2018.
Okay.
And at that time, we were hoping to be able to lease it. And I had done research involving, like, what do you call those? Tough sheds
Yeah.
instead of pallet shelters. But then in 2021, we went to a rescue mission convention in Baltimore, Maryland, and saw these pallet shelters and thought, oh, wow, that would be so much better. And it would already come with all of the components that we were talking about, trying to get, little air conditioning or swamp cooler units and a little heating unit and all those things. So this just sounded like a better option. So actually 2018, so this has been a long time coming. That was 5 years ago.
Thank you. I just want a little bit of the history to share with
Okay.
everyone. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd entertain a motion for this item.
A motion that we adopted resolution number 9172.
Authored.
Motion and second. Call the roll, please.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent.
All right.
Recuse myself. Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
can I confirm that was the first recommendation? The second was to authorize the city administrator to modify or amend. Was that also approved? Just for the record?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It's as agenda size. Let's go that.
Great.
And then we need the vice mayor to recuse himself.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank
For
you.
item
I
number
work for
7.
the company, so I have to
Okay.
refuse.
All right,
Okay,
Brian.
item number 7, Oroville Chamber of Commerce Annual Barbecue. Go ahead.
Yes, the chamber reached out and asked that, to see if the city was interested in sponsoring a table or two. I think historically, the city has sponsored a table at their event. They're having a barbecue coming up on August 17th at, is it Riffles Resort?
Riffles Resort. Yeah.
Sounds like a nice place. The table would be $455 each, and it would seat 8 individuals.
I'm fine with the table. What, anyone else got more than one? One table's fine.
One.
I recommend getting the little spray for your legs because the bugs out there the sand fleas hit you. But it's okay.
Or you said 1 or 2?
I don't care, whatever you want to do. 2 tables fine.
Because that, for,
Sure, go ahead. Councilman Thompson, go ahead.
thanks. With the tables, I'd love for our directors, if there's room
Yeah.
for our directors to, I'm not sure if, I can't remember necessarily in times past. I know that typically we get
City
seats for
staff, yeah.
but is 2 going to be sufficient for?
You know, I think so. I know that, I'll say this, the chamber did reach out to me as well and invited a few of us, some of the new staff here, they would like us to be there. So they've already set, I think 6 seats aside for a handful of us.
I think 2 tables would take care of it all, though, don't you?
Well, it depends, because if there's 8 per
That's-
table,
that's 16.
if all council members, that's, if their spouses came, that'd almost fill up 2. So I'm not sure if staff, if they're going to bring their, I've never met your wife before, but it'd be great if.
Absolutely.
she was a-
Yeah.
He says that was strategic.
So just I guess, if maybe just do a questionnaire to see who's coming and if there's +1, and if we needed 3 for our directors and
2
city
to 3?
council.
That works.
Okay.
Yeah, we would agree to 3. By consensus, we'll do it that way. How's that?
And I'll pull the group to see who's available.
Okay.
I think,
I'm still on the list.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chrissy.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
During the last event that they hosted, we bought 2 tables, and we only filled one of them. And so it would just be, I would urge council members to reply quickly on whether or not you'll be attending so that
Good
we
idea.
can purchase the appropriate amount. It's
Thank you.
rather embarrassing to have an empty table at an
I think we
event.
sat this table and it's half full.
At the spring, no, at the fall one, but at the spring one,
Yep.
we sat together. Nobody sat at the other one. It was sad.
Good point.
So reply quickly.
Okay.
all right, 2 to 3, and I'll poll everybody.
All right, can we bring
Great.
Mr. Smith back in now? Item number 8 is the annual special tax for the city's Community Facilities District number 2006-1, West Side Safety Facilities, and District 2006-2, Public Safety Services for fiscal year 23-24.
I need to recuse
Yes.
myself, please, because I live over there.
You bet. We will hold.
Good evening, Mayor Reynolds. Mayor Pittman and council members.
There you go. Go ahead.
This annual tax roll for our community facilities districts, West Side Public Safety Facilities and Public Safety Services. This is to get these assessments on the tax roll. It is prepared by our consultant who is on the line if you have any questions.
Any questions, or we have any cards on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any speakers on this item.
Okay. Council, any questions? I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the annual special tax for the city's Community Facilities District Number 2006-1 and District Number 2006-2, Public Safety Services for fiscal years 23 and 24, 2023 and 2024.
I second that.
Call the roll, please.
Motion carries with 4 yeses, 2 absent, and 1 recused.
All right, can we bring Tracy back in? Thank you, Mr. Smith. Number 9 is the annual sanitary sewer service to be levied on the 23-24 tax roll. That's back to Ruth.
That's me again, Mayor Pittman and city council members. This is our annual sewer tax roll. Like to point out that there is no increase on the city side. There is a $4 monthly increase on the score side. So you might be hearing about that. It's quite a jump from the last 4 years. It was a $2 a month increase. So Just so you know, that is not on the city side, it's on the SCORE side.
Okay, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public speaker cards.
Council questions? I'd entertain a motion for item number 9 then.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll, please.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 absent.
Okay, last item here is public communication, open for any public comments or non-agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards.
No cards. All right, then we'll move to future agenda items and/or any items from council coming up. Seeing none, we'll move to correspondence. We have a letter from Mr. Legron might speak about.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is our annual military equipment use notification to the public that we have to make. I believe it's AB 431 requires an annual update to the council. Just to not alarm anyone, we don't have a large cache of military equipment. It's military equipment as defined by the state, which includes large caliber round ammunition, some rifles, and flashbangs, different things like that. So this is to notify the public. The council will be hearing this report at the next meeting so that anyone that would like to add their comments or concerns can come down and share them with the council. Essentially, the report is included in the correspondence, and the staff report will be the same staff report.
Yeah, and if I could just follow up, as Mr. Legrand just mentioned, as the chief mentioned, it is military equipment as defined by the legislature, which includes, usually you think military equipment is, lethal stuff. The list of non-lethal items like beanbag projectiles, things like that, that really dominates the list. Why they call it military equipment, I have no idea. Because usually you think military equipment is intended to really take out your enemy and break all their stuff. And a lot of this is intended specifically to be non-lethal, including pepper spray and pepper balls and, so it is what it is. It is one of the things the legislature requires. You do not have a significant amount of it.
Thank you. Any questions?
Maybe.
Go ahead.
So then maybe when the report comes out, we can maybe invest in more military grade stuff for our city.
Yeah, well, interesting enough, one of the military pieces of equipment is the drone. I mean, so it's all over the place with what their definition is. So
Maybe just realize we don't have enough military grade equipment in our city.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. All right, thank you. Next item is to adjourn the meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So moved. Call roll, quick.
We need, call to adjourn.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. The meeting will be adjourned to the next regular meeting of the Oroville City Council to be held on August 15th, 2023 at 4 p.m. And I should note that we had a real short agenda, so all of us could attend the National Night Out tonight at the Martin Luther King Park.